So hello and welcome. Thank you for joining tonight to learn how you can electrify your ride with an EV or an e-bike. My name is Annika Osborne and I'm with Cool the Earth, an environmental nonprofit with the mission to reduce carbon emissions and air pollution. With the climate crisis looming, we can agree that it's important to reduce fossil fuel usage. And since transportation is the biggest contributor to our individual carbon footprint, we need to get out of our gas cars. So at Cool the Earth, we advocate walking, biking, taking public transportation, carpooling in electric cars preferably. And with our Drive Clean Bay Area collaboration, we focus on educating and engaging people around zero emissions vehicles like e-bikes and electric cars. I want to thank Electrify America for sponsoring this event and the League of Women Voters for partnering with Drive Clean for this series of events. We have in attendance tonight League members from 9 states, which is very exciting. And today we'll kick it off with the opening remarks from Diz Swift, the co-chair of US Climate Interest Group for League of Women Voters. Then we'll cover benefits of driving electric, current and coming EVs and e-bikes with some driver spotlights, charging at home and on the road, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So at this time, I would like to introduce Diz Swift. Diz is the co-chair of the US Climate Interest Group for the League of Women Voters. Diz, you can take it from here.
Great, thank you, Annika. We are delighted to be partnering with Drive Clean. They are a dynamite group and are bringing to those areas where it used to be that electricity was the major contributor to greenhouse gases. And in most places now, electricity has been surpassed by transportation. And so moving to EV does make a big difference. The League of Women Voters, as you know, or I hope you know, is most recognized for our voting rights work and elections. And as you probably also are aware, there are many threats to voting rights at this point, and we are working very hard to protect everyone's right to vote. But we're also working on climate change. From our website, we have the quote, "As citizens of the world, we must protect our planet from the physical, economic, and public health effects of climate change, while also providing pathways to economic prosperity." So it's a balancing act. We need to do so many different things. Climate change touches nearly everything, and it makes it an overwhelmingly complex problem. Next slide, please. So we have formed a climate interest group in the League. We have about 1,500 members, more, it keeps growing. And our role is to educate on climate issues to all of the many leagues across the US so that we can speak with one voice. We have 11 teams of various sorts. We have water team, oceans team, climate justice team, food, soils, and agriculture, and so on. And so if you are interested in being a part of the League's climate action, I will put my email in the chat and please just email me. So let's get on and learn about EVs. Annika.
So there are many benefits to driving electric. From an environmental perspective, with an EV, we can reduce our impact on the earth by decreasing carbon emissions and air pollution. Our passenger vehicles are the single largest source of emissions, representing up to 50% of our individual carbon footprint. So when you switch from a gas car to an EV and plug into clean energy, you can cut your carbon footprint significantly. It's an impactful action and we want everyone in. From a personal perspective, when you make the switch, you can save time, money, and improve your driving experience with an EV. And you'll be a part of the electrification movement, which is really taking off now. So the climate crisis and poor air quality are affecting everyone, but not equally. Due to systemic inequities, communities of concern are disproportionately impacted by climate and experience the effects of climate change first and worst. And air pollution greatly impacts these communities, which are often located near freeways, major roads, and oil refineries. The good news is that people are starting to notice, speak out, and take action. And we need to continue to get the word out about working for environmental justice through climate solutions. So when we reduce emissions, it helps everyone on the earth. So for many people, deciding which car to buy comes down to finances. I know it always does for me. So many EVs have a lower total cost of ownership compared to gas cars. Some of the reasons for the low cost of driving electric are that during the past 5 to 10 years, battery research has really expanded and EV battery prices have dropped dramatically. There are government incentives available up to $10,000 here in California. I know every state is a little bit different with local incentives. Gas can be 2 to 5 times more expensive than electricity, depending upon where you live. There's no scheduled maintenance for EVs. And a recent government study came out confirming that the cost of maintenance on battery electric vehicles is 40% less than for gas, hybrid, and plug-in hybrid vehicles. For California residents, Drive Clean Bay Area partners with Cartelligent for an EV discount campaign twice a year. So with all of these different incentives, driving electric is equivalent to driving a gas car. So there are lots of incentives available when you switch to driving electric. Every state is a little different. And as I mentioned, in California, you can save up to $10,000 with rebates and tax credits for a fully electric car. I know there are rebates all over the United States. I know I think New Jersey actually leads in like state incentives. The federal tax credit is claimed on tax liability when you file your taxes and does not come in the form of an upfront rebate. The vehicle tax credit is currently not available for Teslas or Chevy Bolts, and the credit is for purchase only, but some dealers will take it off of the lease price. That is the case for the Volkswagen ID4, where when they're calculating your lease price, they will themselves take on the federal tax credit, and then they'll pass it on to you as the customer. Several manufacturers do this as well, but it's something to be aware of and always ask for. The home charging rebate is available for up to $1,000. The credit is for 30% of the cost of the charging station or outlets and the install. So where you live, there may also be state, county, and utility rebates. The PlugStar website has a great nationwide savings calculator, so you can calculate exactly which incentives you qualify for wherever you live. Also want to mention there are some income qualifying grants. I know here in California, there may be some in every state or where you live, so it's worth checking in with your utility perhaps to see if there's any information about that. So EVs offer an amazing driving experience. What I really like is the extra torque or power that you get when you drive electric. So I can quickly accelerate when I'm getting on the freeway, and then I can just easily maneuver between lanes. You just kind of, get in where you want to go. You just push a little power and go. And I love that. The quiet, smooth drive makes for a stress-free road trip and nice conversations. And for me, the high safety ratings were a big factor. I have teenagers at home and wanted to make sure we were all driving safe cars. And in the next section, before we take a look at the cars, we're actually going to take a look at the carbon footprint of EVs and the batteries that store the energy. So it's clear that we need to stop driving gas cars to reduce carbon emissions and air pollution. So walking, biking, taking public transportation are all great ways to do this. And if people require cars, we encourage replacing gas cars with electric vehicles like e-bikes and EVs. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, for everyone in the country, charging the average new EV produces far fewer global warming pollutants than driving the average new gasoline car. And yes, it currently does take a little more carbon to produce an EV because of the battery, but even that is reducing as manufacturers are streamlining their processes. The orange part of this chart represents the cradle to grave carbon emissions for vehicle components, while the blue represents carbon emissions from combusting gasoline. Thank you to all of the Prius drivers who early on took environmental action by cutting their carbon emissions in half. And as you can see with an EV, you could continue to cut your carbon emissions when you switch your car out. So let's talk about batteries. There are issues with EVs, mainly the batteries, in terms of extracting rare minerals and the energy required to produce batteries. But there's so much research being done around batteries now, and batteries are changing quickly. The goal is for batteries to be cleaner, safer, and more efficient, meaning that you can charge your EV in 15 minutes. The good news about EV batteries is that besides the early Nissan Leafs, batteries will last for many, many miles. Some are predicting between 300,000 to 500,000 total. So for cars, when the battery goes below, say, 80% of its capacity, the range is reduced, which is not catastrophic. You can still drive your EV, you just can't go as far. And then there's the second life of EV batteries, using them for stationary storage, which is something that our utilities are very interested in. So we produce a lot of solar energy in the United States, and if we don't use it while the sun is shining or store it, when the sun goes down, it's gone. So there's a lot of research being done now to transition EV batteries for stationary storage. And after being used to store energy, 95% of the materials in EVs can be recycled, even rare minerals like cobalt. So there are over 50 plug-in electric vehicles available. And there's an EV or an e-bike for every lifestyle and every budget. And that's a great thing because we need everyone on board cutting their carbon footprint in half in order to have collective impact. Most fully electric EVs offer 200 to 300 miles of range, and some go even farther on one charge, which means that you can go, I know I'm from the Bay Area, so this is a little bit localized, but you can go from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe with just a 15-minute charging break. With some cars, you don't even have to stop at all. Coming home, you don't have to stop at all because you're going downhill and benefiting from that regenerative braking. You can also go from San Francisco to Sacramento and back without having to stop to charge. So next up, I'd like to introduce you to League members, Nancy and Bruce Bell, who happily drive their Chevy Bolt, not just around town, but around the country. They are also avid bikers. Please tell us a little bit about why you ride and drive electric and a bit about your experience.
Thank you, Annika. I want to thank Drive Clean Bay Area and Marin for the work that you guys are doing. It's incredible and was probably what started to open the door for us to get involved with electric vehicles back in 2017. I'm not going to get into the technical part of having an EV electric vehicle, but I will say this: they are so much fun to drive. We still have one gas car, and we fight over who gets to drive the EV. It's a pleasure, and we've had it for 4 years now. And my husband Bruce will tell you more about that experience because I'm also very excited about my electric bike. I am a road cyclist and for recreation, so I don't use it for transportation in lieu of a car. But I have to tell you, if you are a road cyclist, the road versions of electric bikes that are out these days are just like a road bike. It doesn't look like the bigger, chunkier electric bikes that you've seen. My bike weighs 27 pounds, and it has been a game changer for me. I can do the rides that I used to do 15 years ago and keep up with my husband. So if you're contemplating an electric bike for just purely recreation, I highly recommend it. And now Bruce is going to tell you more about the Guy experience.
Keep up with your husband when she lets me keep up with her. In fact, the electric bike has been a lot of fun for me too. I'm still on my regular bike. You can see on the back of the car there. And when I'm with Nancy, I can ride as hard as I want. In fact, I really have to ride hard up the hills. So she mentioned we bought our Chevy Bolt in 2017, and we have 55,000 miles on it now. And one of the longer trips we took was we drove it up to Washington State. And in the wintertime, we had a little sleet and snow, and it was just great. It's a very pleasant experience. People will tell you how much they like to drive electric just because of the quietness and so forth. And as an example, I have to say, when people come to our house for dinner and cocktails, before the cocktail, we make them drive the Bolt. And we've sold 12 Bolts to friends of ours who, just from the experience of driving it. So we really like the car. And then just one other point, that we're in a condominium association. So I make a special effort to try and help people in that situation with charging their cars.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy and Bruce. This gave me also a moment to read chat. And let me see here. Let me see if I can find a solution. Okay, is it better? So thank you. I think it's Barbara who gave me a little tip there. I had optimized this for video because I was showing some videos in the beginning. And so thank you for that. But I will say, while I was in the chat, there were a couple of questions that came up, and I will just answer them real quickly. So somebody was asking, what is my tax? If my tax liability is less than 7,500, can I get the full tax credit of 7,500? No, you can only get the tax, the amount that you owe the government. So that's something that you might want to plan in advance. If you're thinking next year of getting an EV, you might be able to adjust your income taxes so that you owe more. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, so I have 2 electric vehicles, and I have not found that the EV registration is higher than for ICE cars. I did a comparison. I had a Subaru Outback before, and now I have a Tesla Model 3. It was the same registration price. It's just that when you have a new car, the registration price is more expensive. But I will say that in terms of insurance, while we're on the topic here, insurance tends to be a little bit more expensive for an electric vehicle. And from what I've understood, I've done a little bit of research on this. It's because these cars are very progressive and innovative, and they have sophisticated electronics and sensors. So that is the reason that insurance does cost a little bit more. They're also some of the safest cars out there. So hopefully there will be less reason to actually have to contact your insurance. Okay, back to the show. And this is the fun part, the cars. So on these next slides, the prices that are listed are the base MSRP. There are many additional incentives that may also apply. So the actual cost can be much less than these prices. So here are a couple of the lower range EVs that are available for just around 30,000. Not everybody needs a high range EV. And these work out great for commuting, and the Nissan Leaf Plus model actually offers higher range at a little more cost, but still around the same 30,000 range. Here are a few of the most popular models that you've most likely seen around. The Hyundai Kona, the Kia Niro are great crossovers, and the Tesla Model 3 is a sedan. It offers an all-wheel drive option and very fast charging. And incidentally, in 2021, the average price of a new car in the United States is $40,000. So this is the prices of the cars before incentives. So these prices, again, could be much lower. And next, I'd like to introduce Marcy Snyder. Marcy thinks that driving an all-electric car is a delightful experience and has been an encouraging motivation in actively addressing the climate crisis locally in Mendocino County through Grassroots Institute and Climate Crisis Work Group. Marcy, please tell us why you drive electric and what your experience has been like with your Nissan Leaf.
I drive electric because it doesn't pollute. It doesn't put out a carbon footprint. I also have solar on my house. And when I got the electric vehicle, prior to it, I wanted to use the electric vehicle and my solar system as a political tool to go to local government, city councils, and to the county to say solar panels on every roof, electric vehicles in every driveway. I really believe this needs to happen. I've lived with solar for almost 40 years, and I'm very happy that I've done that. Electric vehicle wasn't an option for me until recently. It's just a pleasure to drive an electric vehicle. It's a pleasure to be able to go before these local governmental bodies and say, hey, look, I don't have a lot of money. I'm low income. The incentives made it so I could get myself a used electric vehicle that is taking care of all of my needs. And we've actually made some progress. The Mendocino County has actually set aside $2 million to have, they call it the carbon-free Mendocino resolution. And we'll see where that actually goes. Of course, we need more like $20 million for these government entities to go to clean energy all the way around vehicles and photovoltaic systems. I'm just very pleased that I can do this. It's a pleasure to drive it. There's something that hasn't really been addressed that I've heard so far, and that's the cost of maintenance of the vehicle. There's no oil changes. There's nothing except the wheels. There's no transmission. There's just a motor that goes directly to the front wheel. So my vehicle is front wheel drive. So I have no expenses on the car. There's nothing to do on it except change windshield wipers and get the tires, keep them topped up with air and rotate them. I'm just very, very pleased. I wish everybody would move away from pollution. I would like to see the climate crisis addressed. I would like to see government to come forward and do this because they can set a good example. The Grassroots Institute in Mendocino County has partnered with Mendocino County League of Women Voters. They have been a tremendous help in cooperating. We have been cooperating together to address the climate crisis with our government entities. And so I want to thank you, Anika, for all that you and your organization is doing, with the League is doing around the state and around the country, and hopefully we can save our planet.
Thank you so much for your experiences and your perspective, Marcy.
You're welcome.
Okay, so these next three cars came out in 2021. So they get one car per slide. The ID4 is the first from the Volkswagen ID brand, and there will be more coming. They say that Volkswagen ID Buzz that is supposed to replace the iconic bus is coming out in 2023. I know a lot of people are excited by that. And a bonus, when you lease or buy this car, you'll receive free fast charging for 3 years at the Electrify America charging networks. The Mustang Mach-E is a very popular car. So people say the Mustang Mach-E is a lot like the Tesla Model Y, but with the federal tax credit. I've met a few people who own that car and they love it. The Volvo Xc40 Recharge is also a great SUV. You sit up nice and high and it has a beautiful interior. Volvo is committed to all electric and vegan seats by 2030. And I know they have another model coming out pretty soon. It's the C40 Recharge, which is a little bit sleeker, not as boxy, just a little bit of a smaller car that will be coming out next year. So in the luxury segment of the market, there's the Audi e-tron, the Polestar 2, which is a relative of Volvo, and the Tesla Model Y. These are beautiful, safe cars, and the Model Y has a third row of seats and fits 7 passengers, 2 very small passengers in the back, I have heard. And if you absolutely cannot find an all-electric car that works for you, there are many plug-in hybrids out there. So if you plug in a PHEV, as we call them, every night, you may be able to cover your commute driving all electric, and you can save the gas tank for road trips. So the Honda Clarity, the Prius Prime, and the Kia Niro plug-in hybrid are good choices for commuting. They have a decent electric range. And if you're in the market for a larger plug-in hybrid, the Chrysler Pacifica, the Toyota RAV4 Prime, and the Kia Sorento are great options. They have significantly more electric range, which is something that we like to see. That Toyota RAV4 Prime has been very popular and a little bit hard to get a hold of, but we're hoping that production picks up on that. Marcy was talking to us a little bit about her used EV, and it's great that she was able to get that Nissan Leaf used. EVs have been around for just about 10 years. And because EV technology is so new, many people lease their EVs. So now they're are many available on the market at good prices. So here are just a few of the many affordable used EVs available. Higher range EVs like Chevy Bolts and Teslas are also available on the used market. Here are some EVs that are coming soon. The Audi Q4 e-tron has a significantly lower price than the current Audi e-tron, like $20,000 cheaper, and a good amount of electric range. It's a little bit smaller. And then there's the Nissan Ariya coming out early next year. And here are a couple that are coming out around the $45,000 price range. They should be coming out later this year or possibly early next year. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 is the first Hyundai built exclusively as an EV, and it can charge 60 miles in 5 minutes and go from 10% to 80% charge on a fast charger in 18 minutes. So we're not quite at a gas station experience yet, but we're getting close. Just enough to plug in, use the restroom, get a little snack and a drink, and you're ready to go again. It also has bidirectional charging, which may add some resiliency during power shutdowns. And the Kia EV6 is Kia's first all-electric brand. Both of these cars are taking reservations now. So we don't have the BMW i3 on this slide. It came out in 2014 and it has been a huge success. Now they're moving up to the BMW i4 and the iX. I was at an event last week and I saw a model of the iX. They wouldn't even let us like open the doors to look at it. It must be like the only one in Northern California or something, but it is a beautiful, beautiful car. And then there's Rivian, the new all-electric EV manufacturer. So the Rivian SUV and truck offer excellent utility with a high range. As an environmental nonprofit, we like the fact that Rivian answers the high consumer demand for both SUVs and trucks. And these are starting to be delivered now. Like we should be starting to see some of these trucks anyway, any day on the road. The SUVs will be coming out a little later this year. Very, very exciting. It's nice to give Tesla a run for their money. But this is a picture that I saw on the Rivian website a while back, and I'm a big fan of camping, so I was very excited when I saw this. I think this is the future of camping. So you can see behind that cab is a big black thing that you pull out. So that's an all-electric cook stove. So no more lugging your Coleman cooking stove and cans of propane with you when you go camping. You can just cook right off of the battery of your EV. And then I imagine that cooler over there is all electric as well. So you don't have to use ice. You just plug it into the EV to keep it cool. And you don't make a big old mess in your cooler. Very, very exciting stuff. And just incidentally, it's very energy intensive to drive, but cooking a meal or cooling your food doesn't take that much energy. So you would only be using a small amount of your range if you use these features. I just am excited about the future of camping when I saw this. And yes, trucks are on their way, coming next year. Over 1 million people have ordered the Tesla Cybertruck. And we're especially excited about the Ford F-150 Lightning, which offers extra resiliency with bidirectional charging. It's basically a battery on wheels. So the regular F-150 ICE car, or when I say ICE, I mean internal combustion engine or gas car. It is the most popular car in the United States and has been for many, many years. And we think the Lightning will be very, very popular, a game changer. So if you're not in the market for an EV, an e-bike might be right for you. So instead of hopping in a gas car, you can try commuting or running errands with an e-bike. E-bikes are fast and fun, and there are so many different types of models to choose from. Fun fact, in 2020 in the United States, 600,000 e-bikes were sold, a rate of 1 every 52 seconds. So as you can see, there are many EVs and e-bikes out there, and what I've shown you is just a small sampling. Our website has links to EV test drives and testimonials, and also all of the vehicles that are available and that are coming soon as well. So the next part of the presentation is basically how to EV. So we'll talk a little bit about charging. mostly about charging here. So we'll talk about charging both at home and on the road. Most people get worried about charging and range, but for many people, 90% of charging is done at home or at work. So charging at home, there are two options. The first is an easy, no-cost solution and is ample for most people. You just plug in the charger that comes with your vehicle into a standard 120-volt outlet, and it gives you 25 to 40 miles of charge in 8 hours, which is usually overnight, just enough to replenish your battery. So many people don't drive much more than that. So this easy solution called level 1 charging is great for most people. But if you do drive more than 50 miles a day, it's a good option to see if you can charge at work. I know that's not always available for everybody right now. If not, you may want to purchase a home charging station for level 2 charging. You'll get about 25 miles in an hour, so you can easily get a full charge overnight. You know, typically we're not going from like 0 to 100. That's not like the typical thing. What, you know, in my own experience, I'm just basically topping off. I basically go from like 60% to 80% on a day-to-day basis, you know, based on how much I drive. So the first step, if you do want to get a level 2 charger, is to consult with an electrician. We have an online resource in our buying and driving guide that will help you determine the right charging station. There are also many level 2 public chargers available, so you can charge when you're around town and running errands. So for example, when I go to farmer's market, I'll usually charge my car for an hour and pick up 25 miles of range. But when you're on a road trip, you'll want to charge, you'll want to fast charge with the level 3 charger, which is the fastest charging available. Different EVs charge at different speeds, so that's something to be aware of, you know, what your needs are, and if you're going to be using this a lot for road trips. On average, fast charging will get you about 70% of your battery charge in 30 minutes. And so charging on the road is often 20 or 30 minute stop. And as you can see, there are 3 different standards for level 3 charging. The one on the left is the one that is the CHAdeMO standard that the Nissan Leaf uses. The one in the middle is the CCS standard that most cars use. The one on the right is the Tesla standard. And incidentally, I haven't really heard an update, but Elon Musk did say a couple of months ago that he's going to open up his superchargers for all electric vehicles by the end of this year, he said. So we'll look out for an announcement soon. So if you're interested in level 2 charging at home and you already have a 240-volt outlet, a smart splitter can be useful. Smart splitters are 240-volt safety devices that can be used for your home EV charging and appliance setup. So the 2 primary uses for a smart splitter are to share a circuit with an appliance like your clothes dryer, which also takes 240 volts, or to share between your two EVs, because once you get one EV in your household and you need another car, you're bound to get a second EV. You'll want to check in with an electrician before opting to use a smart splitter. You want to make sure you have enough amps to use this on your circuit. So once you start driving electric, it's ideal to charge your EV from rooftop solar, like Marcy is doing. There's a federal tax credit available this year and next. They just extended it to next year for 26% of the install cost. It's a great feeling to charge your car from the electricity that you generate from your own solar panels. And for more resilience, you may want to consider battery for storage. If you're not ready for solar, you can choose a clean energy plan from your utility so that you're charging your EV with clean energy from the sun and the wind. If you live in California, there are these alternatives called CCAs, which are organizations that procure clean electricity. So you'll still get your electricity transmitted to your house from your utility, like in our case, that's PG&E, but we get our electricity from something called Marin Clean Energy. And so we know that we're supporting 100% renewable energy. There are solar farms and wind turbines. So that's something to look into where you live. So in addition, your utility may offer a special reduced EV or time of use rate so that you pay less for electricity during certain times of the day. Where I live, the off-peak time for the EV rate is between midnight and 3 p.m. That's when we can use wind and solar. So that's a nice benefit. It's very inexpensive for me to charge at home during this time. I used to just set my EV to start charging right at midnight when this rate, took an effect. But we recently got solar, so now I've set my car to start charging at 9 a.m. when I know there's plentiful sun. Although we have rain here in the Bay Area for about a week. Yes, we're happy for that. But anyway, I want to just use as much of that solar energy as I can. So there are several EV charging solutions for people who live in multi-unit buildings, and more solutions are on their way. So if a charging station is not available, people charge by plugging into a standard 120 volt outlet if that's available. If there's no charging where you live, advocate for 120 volt or 240 volt charging. And there are new smart outlets that help you track electricity so that you can reimburse the property owner for the amount that you use. If you can't charge at home, you can charge at work, and then many people also charge at public fast chargers. On average, I think I mentioned this, fast charging will get you about 70% battery charge in 30 minutes. Approximately 90% of Californians now live within 15 miles of an Electrify America ultra fast charger, and Biden's infrastructure plan includes 500,000 new fast charging stations in the United States. So if there's not one near you now, one is on the way. We're just hoping to get these two bills passed through Congress quickly here. And as Bruce mentioned earlier, he is willing to help anybody out who lives in a multi-unit building. He's become quite an expert on the topic and is very helpful. So smart outlets offer an affordable way for EV owners to charge their vehicles in a shared space. These smart outlets monitor the electricity that you use to charge your EV so that you can reimburse the owner for that power. You can just install these boxes. They have been in beta mode for a while, but now they are like the real deal. They're ready to go. Orange Charger is a company that has a product called Orange Outlet that really helps make this happen. I know there's one in Bruce's condominium complex, and you've had some great success with that. So taking a road trip is getting simpler all the time. So thousands of public charging sites provide fast charging, and using apps like PlugShare, it's easy to plan a trip and find chargers along the way. Electrify America, EVgo, and ChargePoint all offer app or card-based stations, making it easy to tap, charge, and go. So you basically just have the app on your phone, you hold it up at the charging station, and it connects to your account, and then it charges you for the amount of electricity that you use. But with public charging, we recommend that you practice a few times locally and then take your first trip. You do have to hook up these accounts to your credit cards. You don't want to be doing that when you're on a road trip somewhere. So make sure you get set up before you head out. Anytime I go on a road trip, and I've been on several in my EV, I always go to the PlugShare website and map out my trip in advance. It's convenient, and it helps me kind of figure out like, oh, where can I stop and have lunch or dinner, and where can I buy groceries? You can get all sorts of information about the places where you stop to charge. And then when taking a road trip, many hotels offer something called destination charging, which is basically free level 2 charging. Sometimes you'll pull up to a hotel, you can plug in, and your car will be fully charged when you wake up in the morning. So that's nice. You can even do a search on Expedia for hotels that have EV charging. That's what I've been doing recently. And when I stay in an Airbnb or a Vrbo, I ask the property manager if I can charge while I'm staying. So far, I've stayed in 4 or 5 places, and each time they've been super friendly and hospitable. They've even set up extension cords for me to use so that I can charge while I'm on the road. So I just pack with me actually an extension cord and my EV charging station. Sorry, my EV home charging cable, not my charging station. So climate change is happening and power shutdowns are happening. Some people are worried about having an EV because of power shutdowns, but EVs can actually help during a power shutdown. And you know, when there's a power shutdown, you can't get gas at the gasoline station because that requires electricity to pump the car into your car, the gas into your car. So you can plug an inexpensive 300-watt inverter into the accessory port and power up small appliances like cell phones, laptops, LED lights. Just about 2 years ago, we lost power for 5 days. And while I enjoyed living by candlelight for a couple of days, I decided to try out my inverter. So I plugged it in, and then I had an extension cord going into my house, and I plugged in a bunch of string lights so I could get a little bit of comfort and light into my living room. So the technology around inverters is also advancing quickly, and there are several companies working on vehicle to grid and vehicle to home energy management systems. So just imagine when you come home at the end of the day, when electricity is expensive and not so clean, you can power up your home with the energy that's left in your EV battery, and then power up your EV battery during off-peak hours when there is ample, clean, and inexpensive electricity available. So I just wanted to let you know that while for this national organization, the League of Women Voters, we kind of branded ourselves as Drive Clean, we are also Drive Clean Bay Area. And so our Drive Clean Bay Area website has a lot of resources. Not only do we list webinars and other events that are going on, we have, often we have these EV 101 and EV 102 webinars. But we also have a robust website highlighting available and coming EVs, a how-to EV section with steps to driving electric, and a buying and driving guide. So lots of great resources there. And you came here today to learn how to switch to electric vehicles so that you can reduce carbon emissions. And it's great that you took the time to learn about how to switch to driving electric. We thank you for that. And can we ask for your help? We can all remember our blue skies and clean air last April and May, year and a half ago, when many people stopped driving. If you can make the switch to driving electric now, we're here to help you. The sooner, the better. If you're not ready now, can we have your support by pledging to make your next car electric? And if getting an EV now is not feasible, we recommend holding on to your current car as solutions are on the way. If you need a different car now, we recommend buying a used gas car or a plug-in hybrid, since a newly purchased or leased gas car will be on this road for 12 to 15 years, emitting carbon and air pollution. Yeah, so if you're going to be using, Phil, if you're going to be using this car to commute, you get that, I don't know where you live, but in many states you can get a decal for your car. It's an HOV decal so that you can drive in the fast lane as a single passenger, which can really help you save time. So that's another reason to lease. So the reason I'm saying that is the decal lasts for 3 years here in California anyway. The decal lasts for 3 years. And so you can lease your car for 3 years and then get a new lease and get a new decal on your car. So that's one reason to lease. Also just the new technology coming out, but really it just depends on what you're looking for. Like for me, we bought our EVs because we felt like the EVs that we got had enough electric range that for like the next 10 years or so, like we didn't really need more, or we're not really like car people, we're more like environmentalists. So like, I don't need every latest gadget on my car. I just want a car that's going to be reliable and, I can take a road trip in it. Like, so that's, the cars that we have are ample. We have a used EV. We picked up a used e-Golf for our second car. That's the one like our kids use to drive to school. It only has 80 miles of range, but every household does not need 2 long range cars. So, that was something to consider as well. Yeah, check the miles. Also, like make sure they charge the car all the way. 2 things about, getting a used car. Yeah, see if they'll charge the car all the way and see how far it will charge. But also that might not be as telling as doing like a battery test. Some like if you bring it into like the dealer, I think they'll charge you a little bit for it, but they can let you know how efficient your battery is at this point. So that would be worthwhile for sure. Oh yeah, does anybody know if the Biden Build Back Better plan? You know, Stephen, I know that there are some changes because the tax credit honestly is not a very equitable thing. I mean, most people don't have tax liability. So, you know, this only works out if you have tax liability. Awesome if you can get $7,500 back. But, you know, most people don't have that. So I know that there are some provisions in there. I think it was $2,500 for income qualifying folks. A lot of the state rebates also have extra funding for income qualifying people. I will send this PDF, and let me put this in here right now. Actually, well, I'll put it in at the end, but there's that PlugStar savings calculator that you can check out to see which incentives you qualify for. And there are some great income qualifying incentives, some grants that you can get before you buy your car. And then, like, I know here in California, the standard rebate is $2,000, but if your income qualifies, you can get $4,500 from the state. So, and here in Marin County, our CCA MCE, it's a lot of abbreviations there. They offer $3,500, you know, on a new EV as well, if your income qualifies. Steve, I don't know what state you're in, but if you're in California, you can look at the Clean Cars for All website. They have a lot of great information there. Let's see, is there any centralized place where we can get definite information about rebates? Yes, so, you know, just really quickly, because I have this one just off the top of my head. If you live in California, you can look at this one. So yeah, kind of a one-stop shop would be really nice. High-speed charger, rebates. Well, yeah, we're here to help with the incentives and rebates. If you live in Northern California, we know a lot about those. We also have some partners that are putting on events. We have a partner called Actera putting on an event about income qualifying incentives on the 25th. You can find that information on our website, on our events page. They do a real deep dive on income qualifying incentives. Events, check out our events page to see if that is of interest to you. Yeah, we've also thought about, like, it would be great to have a concierge service, because all of this stuff is rather confusing. Getting solar, getting an EV, and charging. I mean, it seems overwhelming, and we wish that there were some sort of concierge service. But really, I would just one step at a time, like, choose one thing to start with, whether it's going to be getting an EV first or getting solar first, and just focus on that. If you do live in the Bay Area, there is an organization called SunShares, one of our partners that has discounts on solar right now through the end of November. And they do webinars about solar. Those are also on our events page that I just put into the chat there, so you can check those out, SunShares. Even if you don't live in California, they give you a really good overview about solar and how it works. And yes, we will be posting this recording. I'll send a follow-up email with this recording, and I believe Diz will do the same, just to make sure everybody has the recording. Let's see, high-speed charger, expansion of solar array. Yeah, so I would talk to whoever installed your solar initially to see about the expansion. Although a friend of mine actually has had solar for many, many years, and he actually expanded his solar array with Tesla solar, because it's really cheap. Actually, it's inexpensive to get the Tesla solar. It's, you know, I know personally, we looked at 3 different solar companies, including Tesla, and Tesla ended up giving us twice as big of a system for the same price as some of the other ones. So it's worth exploring. Customer service is a little iffy with Tesla. Once you do talk to somebody, they're great, but it's, you know, a little touch and go for some people is what I've heard. Any other questions? feel free to, add questions to the chat or raise your hand. Happy to take questions live. It sounds like there are some great resources within the League of Women Voters also, people who drive electric and, working in condos who have solar. So, that's something to consider as well. Phil.
Hello, thank you, Annika, for this great presentation. I have an interesting question that hopefully somebody has already done the math for me, so I don't have to do it. But so we live in the Bay Area, travel to the mountains, probably 3 or 4 times a year, maybe less, and so need that big car and that big SUV, which we have. However, the rest of the time, the big SUV is being used by my wife to commute a half hour, and I work from home, so it's absolutely ridiculous to have this big vehicle. So I'm wondering if anybody has ever done the math and they've turned in their big SUV, they've bought an EV, and then they rent an SUV or a van or whatever when they go up to the mountains. And what that, if you calculate your, your annual cost of vehicle and driving, if anybody's done such a experiment.
I have not done that. I don't know, anybody? I do know people who drive Chevy Bolts, like they have kids who are on the ski team and they go up to Tahoe every single weekend in their Chevy Bolt. They stop for 30 minutes and charge. They have like a ski rack on the car. They have like a box on the top of their car. So they have been able to make it. And they said, they have an SUV as a backup car, but they only had to take it like twice a year or so when there's a lot of snow on the ground, but the Bolt has been fine most of the time. So you might find that you would be okay, with your EV most of the time. Maybe it's just once or twice you would have to rent. And now there are, several EVs out there that are bigger so that you can actually, bring it up to Tahoe, lug all your gear. This is something that we were considering. We like to go camping. And so we got a Tesla Model 3, which is actually a sedan. And we were like, this is going to be a catastrophe. Like, we're not gonna be able to camp in this. But even though it has like that sedan, back, what do you call it, trunk, it has a really deep area. So we can put our whole big cooler in there and fit it in there. We put a big box on there and we take that car camping. It's worked out great.
Cool.
Yeah, and because of the battery and because, in a lot of these cars, the batteries are like underneath that you actually have more storage space. So something to look at. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
But I like the way you're thinking, like it's kind of silly to be driving a big SUV for a commute,
Yeah, very silly.
Yeah. So Stephen is asking, what is my best pitch to my apartment owners to install a charging station?
So I've been through this with my condominium association, and we started out, first of all, by helping them understand what, how much demand there was, because there were people buying electric vehicles, and then, just more and more people wanted this service. So with my board, then the first thing I did was sort of start to educate them a little bit about, what would be involved in installing a charging station. A lot of that depends on your specific situation, like, are you in carports, are you underground parking? But then also I pointed out to them that there was a value add to our homes if there was a policy that allowed electric car charging. And in fact, there's a California state law that says that the homeowner, the condominium association or an apartment complex cannot refuse to let you put in an electric car charger. They don't have to pay for it, they don't have to help you, but they can't just say no. The one thing that really worked well with my homeowners board was when I said, listen, let's just put in on a pilot basis a car charger and see how it goes. And the person who wanted that installed said, I'll take it out if if it causes any problems or there's any reason that you have for that. And so took a lot of stress off of them, the board, to prove that. So now at this point, we have a written policy about what kind of chargers and how you hook them up to electricity that's available. So I would say, educate your board, a little bit of a pilot, kind of go at it slow and easy. And that's what worked for me.
So we have been together for just about an hour. And I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and for, for considering going electric. This is really great. The League of Women Voters has been an amazing partner. Thank you, Diz, for getting the word out and, inviting so many of the different chapters. It's been fantastic. I'll be here until you have questions. So